me, healing was something that I intentionally searched for. It was something that I knew I needed to do, because if I was not going to do it, then my life was going to be in jeopardy. I knew that I was going down the wrong path. I was going down the path of, self destruction. For me, I really needed to save myself at that time. And so for me, I knew that healing was something that needs to be done. But I did feel like the universe pushed me into a sort of a corner where I had no other choice. I had no other option. It was either healing or, going down the wrong path. And I chose the healing path. And of course, being in my 20s, not many people who are in their 20s are really healing themselves. It's not a very common thing. And I remember having friends and talking to other friends who were in their 20s and feeling like I'm such a loner. Like, I wish that I had other people who were in their 20s who also took this path, who also, are healing themselves, because it would just make things so much easier. I would have friends and I would have somebody to talk to. But that wasn't the case. I noticed very quickly that healing is a very sacred path, and it's a path that not many people choose because it's very difficult. You have to really look at all of the unprocessed pain that you've gone through, and sometimes having to relive that again is very uncomfortable. That's why not many people choose this path. And if you are somebody who is on your healing path now, then you definitely can look around and see that not many people are doing what you're doing. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to heal. Was like 22, and I found myself, desperately wanting to heal myself. I sought tools, and I sought an alternative life from everything that I was going through at that time. A lot of disorders, a lot of depression, a lot of stuff. And for me, I knew that it was all coming from like my childhood. So, I needed to do a lot of childhood healing in my early 20s, and that is something that set me on a path of healing. And I've been on this path for about 6 years now. And one thing I've definitely learned is that it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. Sometimes it gets really difficult. It gets very, very challenging. There were times when I would find myself feeling like, like this. It's too much. Like, I can't do it. Like, I'll sit with this tomorrow, or I'll sit with this next week. But the more I put it off, it's like I'd feel very anxious, and there's no other choice but to look at it. There were days where I can't even explain how I felt. Just having to go through and relive some of the things that I went through all over again. I'm glad that I got the opportunity to begin my healing journey early, because I knew that it was going to set a very strong foundation for me in my 30s and my 40s. And, that is something that I want. I didn't want to have all this unprocessed pain and all of these patterns within myself and then go and project it into the world and attract circumstances that were aligned with the wounds that I had. I really didn't want that type of life, and I wanted different. And therefore, for me, it was like having to really look at these things so that I know that in the future, I will set myself up for attracting better. I'll set myself up for attracting people that will align to my healed version of myself rather than the unhealed version of myself. I definitely attracted a lot of like relationships and friendships that were out of the unhealed version of myself. And I got to see how that unfold. And now, being on my healing journey, I also got to see how people come into my life that are very much in alignment with the much more healed version of myself. So doing the work, it does pay off. So for me, one thing that I realize is that the more I look into my unprocessed pain, my childhood traumas, I get the opportunity to now be more conscious. Get the opportunity to now shift a lot of the beliefs, get the opportunity to attract people, especially relationships, partners that are much more aligned with the healed version of myself, as I mentioned, and are not coming from a very toxic, unhealed place. that before I was attracting. I think for me now, I've definitely realized that, it does show how much work you've done on yourself, how much healing you've done within yourself, shows in the partners that you attract, in the friendships you attract, the people who step into your life. And so for me, I definitely wanted to have healthier relationships. I wanted it to be much more positive. I didn't want to attract partners that were aligned with the childhood traumas that I've gone through. It was very important that I also gain a lot of awareness of what aligns with me and what doesn't align with me, and that is what healing allows. It allows you to become more discerning. It allows you to become more aware, so you can make better choices that are coming from a much more healed place rather than a very unhealthy or dysfunctional place. Also, I've definitely realized that when pain is not processed, when pain is not looked at, then it's very easy for it to be passed down. It is very easy for it to be channeled through, to your child, to even your partner. And for me, I didn't want that. The last thing that I want as somebody who has gone through a lot of childhood trauma is for my pain to be passed down to my future children. I didn't want that. And I think that for me, I've definitely realized that I can come from a much more conscious place when it comes to parenting. I can also, choose better. For me, I've definitely realized that I do not want to pass down any, unconscious like beliefs or pain, unprocessed, unhealed pain within myself to my future children, because that morally that just seems like something that feels very wrong for me. And I've definitely experienced a lot of childhood trauma. So coming from that, there's always been this like subtle fear that, oh, I might pass down everything that I've gone through. I might put my future children at the risk of going through. And one thing I've definitely learned is that, I can heal this within myself. The generational traumas and anything that has been passed down to me, I can dissolve that. I can sit through that. I can work through that, and I can choose better for my future children. Myself, it has also been a journey of really taking myself into a state of better health. When before I began my healing journey, I got to see myself have a very low immune system. I used to get sick very, very often. Like being at the doctors was something that I had to go through a lot because my immune system was so low that I would get a flu like immediately. I'll get anything like so quickly. I would also hold a lot of weight like in my face and certain parts of my body that was kind of like indicative of the fact that I am kind of holding on to a lot of trauma. And once I began to like heal those traumas, I got to see the weight kind of drop. So a lot of that weight kind of came from just the heavy baggage of carrying around trauma that needed to be let go of and healed through. And I got to see over the years, unfolding how much of that weight was dropping off. And so for me, I got to see myself in a very different state of health before my healing journey. And now, fast forward a couple years into my healing journey, I now definitely am in a much more healthier place. My nervous system is not so jacked up, it's not so like fight and flight all the time. I'm feeling so unsafe for several years. My nervous system had gotten in that way. So now experiencing the opposite way, my nervous system, I got to do things, I got to go on this path where I could find ways to regulate myself, regulate my emotions, regulate my nervous system. It helped me so much to bring my nervous system from a state of fight and flight to a much more healed place, and bring my nervous system to a much more safe and healed state. So I got to see myself go through a lot of health issues before I began my healing journey. And when I started my healing journey, I got to experience better health, which is very indicative of the work that I've been doing within myself. I made this video to remind you that it's not too late to begin your healing journey. If you are somebody who's asking the question, should I start my healing journey, then yes, absolutely. You don't want the universe to box you up in a corner and having no other choice, like me, having no other choice but to go and heal yourself. Okay, so you want it to be something that you choose as a result of looking into your life and realizing that, oh, actually I don't want things to be this way. I want better. I want to choose better. I want to be better. And so, making that decision to go on this path, a path that not many people go on, can be such a benefit, especially if you are somebody who knows that it is important that you take those steps to do this, to heal yourself. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for receiving, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.